Welcome to day 42, my people, where we're going to be talking about how to consistently hit 10K months in high ticket sales. So, most people never really get past the 3 to 5K a month mark, and it's not because they're not good enough. It's actually because they don't know how to focus like on the inputs, right? The actual inputs that we need to do every single day to consistently hit 10K per month, right? It is very, very achievable. I did it in 4 months. I then went to 20 in 7 months. It's very achievable. We need to make sure we're working on the right offer. And then it's about setting your 10K target clearly. So, 10K per month in commission. We know we can turn it into like a maths equation, right? For example, if we make 10% commission on a 5K offer, we need to close 20 deals per month to get to that 10K a month mark. Quite simply, because it's just $500 in commission and 20 deals, right? So if we know we need to close 20 deals, then we don't need to hope for 10K months. We can actually make it mathematical. To close 20 deals a month, right? Let's say I've got a 20% close rate, right? So let's put it here. So 20 deals per month. That means that we need to close roughly, let's say we're working 5 days a week, let's say. So that means that we need to close one deal per day, right? That means that we need to be taking, with a 20% close rate, we need to be taking 5 calls a day. So that means if we have, for example, a 50% show rate at the moment with the data that we are tracking. Fuck's sake, I can't do this. Show rate. That means that we need to schedule in 10 calls every single day. Right? That is the maths. So, it's very easy up to that point to then reverse engineer 10K per month. Now, obviously, right, if we're selling something more expensive, it means we only need to close less. So it makes it a bit easier, right? So that's why we want to be selling expensive stuff. 5K is the minimum. Because if it was, let's say, 2.5K and we got 10%, we'd have to close 40 deals a month. And that is just fucking intense, right? It's a lot of calls to be taking every single day. And the close rate is what we need to improve, right? 20% is pretty like beginner level. Once you get good enough, I'd expect this to be, after a few months, 30% on average, and then after that, it's 40 plus, right? It depends on the offer, but yeah, so let's say when you're starting it's 20%. So this is the maths, right? So we know then if we can improve this number to, let's say, 70%, if I work that out very quickly, if we need to close one deal a day, so we need to take 5 calls, and we have a 70% show rate, that means that roughly, give or take, it's around 8 calls a day that we need scheduled. So that difference in show rate slashes the amount of calls that we need scheduled, which means it slashes the amount of time we're behind our laptops selling, right? Which means we can, spend that time improving, spend that time, enjoying ourselves for the hard work that we're putting in. But it just shows you the levels, right? And how tiny little numbers can make such a big difference. Because, again, if we know here that, let's say, 30% close rate and we need to close one deal a day, that means that we only need to take, to be on the safe side, 4 calls a day. With a 70% show rate, that means that we can take between 6 to 7 calls per day. So as you improve, as you understand how to improve show rates, your close rate by just doing the reps and getting the right feedback from the right people, it becomes a lot easier to hit 10K per month, right? So this is what I would always always say is super important is like understanding the maths behind it, because that's all it is, right? And it's just simplifying it, because otherwise it can seem like such a far away thing. Whereas if we actually understand the maths behind it, it's actually very achievable, right? So that is the maths behind it in this case, roughly. I hope I got that right. Next, right? Protect your pipeline like your life depends on it. Okay, so we need to track the leads, track the follow-ups, track upcoming calls daily, right? We never want warm leads to go cold. So, for example, we're taking 4 calls a day, we're closing 1 a day. Those 3 other calls that we are taking, right, that need to show, what's happening with that, right? The ones that we're not closing, are we just letting them go? No, we don't want to do that, because that means we're like wasting money. We're throwing it away. And most importantly, we're not able to help the person that's in front of us, right? So with this, it's super important, because if we are just letting warm leads go cold, because let's say, for example, we took 4 calls, we only closed 1 of them because the other 3 maybe logistically didn't have the finances. One said he can join at the end of the week, one said he's going to join a month later, and one said he's going to join 2 months later. The guy who joins a week later or the end of the week, it's much easier to close him, right? Because we're top of mind. The guy that's a month later, we need to be nurturing him with content, right? From the offer, client testimonials, case studies, interviews, because that is going to keep him warm. It's not going to get him cold, because he still has the problem a month later. But it's what happens between the sales call and that month later that he said he would join. That is the dangerous part. Because if we're not following up correctly and nurturing him with sales assets, right, and content that is going to keep him warm and keep us top of his mind, he might go to a competitor, right? And we don't want that for 2 reasons. 1, the competitor might not do as good of a job as the company that we work with. So he'll probably get worse results as a result of that. And secondly, the commissions, right? So that is what is going to be happening as a result. So we need to be protecting our pipeline, ensuring that all the leads we're speaking to that we're not closing for whatever reason that may be, we are making sure that they never go cold. We are nurturing them. We are ensuring that we are top of mind, and we re-engage those leads, right? From, I don't know, let's say it's August now. I'm re-engaging. I'm still calling the leads when I have time from a couple months ago, to ensure that when they have the funds, they start with us, most importantly. And the best way to do that, look at the follow-up video I recorded a couple weeks back, because that is going to give you what you need to kind of ensure that you're doing that correctly. Then, maximizing your close rate. This is key. We've spoken about this, but it's just about re-emphasizing this. Record, review your calls, right? You should be recording all your calls. Review your calls daily. Right, so of these 4 calls that we're taking a day, we review the one that we didn't close that we felt like we could have closed. Understand, why didn't we close it? What could I have done to close it, right? And sending those to be reviewed as well is super important, because you aren't going to spot the same thing as someone else in sales, right? You both look at things differently, naturally. That's just how humans work, right? We can both be looking at a movie, right? We'll both be watching a movie, and we both look at it differently. A scene could be seen as different for you as it is to me. So the same with sales. You need to be getting your calls reviewed. That's why clients work with me. That's why we review the clients' calls regularly, because it's important that we're providing them with the feedback that they can implement to close more deals, right? Next, we want to identify the objections that we're hearing the most, right? Especially when we start, you'll notice a trend. Like, for example, a few offers I worked on, the only objection I was getting was the money objection. It was the money objection. And I could have just been like, okay, well, I'm good at sales because it's only coming down to the money objection. No. The way I looked at it was, okay, how can I tackle this so that instead of, them being like, oh, I can't do it because I don't have the money, they think with, okay, I don't have the money, but I want to do this. I need to do this to improve my situation. How am I going to find the money to do this as soon as possible, right? That is the switch. That is how you handle the objection, and that is how you get more closes. Okay, that's super important. Practicing and rehearsing those objections that you hear, that you're getting along, you make sure that you're a master at them. Then, it's about ensuring we're spending our time where it needs to be. So, for example, something that you'll get over time is when you are taking sales calls, you will know that you'll be able to kind of qualify them pretty early on and identify if this is someone that is actually going to buy or not pretty early on, right? You're looking for buying signals. You're asking the right questions to actually understand, okay, do they have the urgency? Do they have the pain? Are they clear on their solution? These kind of things that we're kind of getting a feel for in like the first 10 minutes of the call. Because we don't want to waste our time with someone that isn't going to buy. So we want to focus on quality conversations by asking quality questions early on in the call to actually uncover if there are real buying intentions from the prospect, right? Because some people are tire kickers. They book into your calendar just because they're shopping around, and we don't want that, right? We don't want to waste our time with those kinds of people. They weren't going to buy in the first place. They had no intention of buying in the first place. So, people like that is what we are trying to kind of filter out, because it can happen still. Then, we want to work at increasing our call volume without burning out. The reason we want to do that is because, look, if we can be taking, I don't know, let's say 8 calls a day, right, with a 30% close rate, we are going to be closing, I don't know, 3 deals a day, if my maths is right. Maybe not. But around that, like 2 to 3 deals a day. So all of a sudden, we've gone from making $500 a day to 1K to 1.5K. What is 1.5K times 20? It's 30K. So that is why it's important to improve the call volume. However, we want to do so without burning out, right? So the way that we do this is be the closer who basically says, who wants it all, who's hungry. Like, give me the leftovers. I want to eat. I'm hungry, right? I'll close them. You want to make sure you have good relationships with the setters, with the people booking the meetings for you. And on top of that, what you can also do is, right, if you want to take more calls and, the setters aren't filling those up, you get in the pipeline. You book meetings for yourself. Get 8 calls in your calendar a day. Because that is going to allow you to reach your goals, right? It's so simple. It's not like one of these things like building like a business, or for example, drop shipping or this. You don't have to do like the research, the advertising, the website, like SEO, how well does that website convert? And those problems are always coming and changing as you go. This is simply one input. Make a couple dials to some people in the pipeline to then fill your calendar, to then close more deals. It's very mathematical, right? Like I said, it's an equation. So this is perfect because this allows us to be in control. We are fully in control of the money we're making. No one else is. And that is why I love this industry. So, we also want to make sure that we are always upskilling. Every top performer is ensuring their framework locked in. Mindset, we've spoken about the importance of this. It's crucial, locked in, improving it all the time. Investing into coaching, investing into books, masterminds, meeting up with people, our network, being exposed to new experiences, improving our tonality, improving our market knowledge. Study other top closers in your company. Understand what they're doing different to you so that you can do it. And again, like I said, invest into coaching, invest into mentorship. Don't be one of those people that feels like you need to do it alone, because doing it alone is so much harder. I've tried that myself many times. I've made it harder for myself than I actually needed to. Having someone there to guide you who's already done it is so powerful. So if you can, invest into it, no matter where you're at in your journey, whether you're just starting, whether you're quite a little bit in your journey, invest into yourself, because that's what it is at the end of the day. That's all it is. It's an investment into yourself that you control the returns on. It's not like a stock. It's not like crypto where it's up in the air. You're hoping it comes, 20x. The return on this is down to you, which is so amazing. Again, why I love this industry. And another thing to keep in mind is you need to treat sales like a business, right? You want to track all the data points that you're having, the amount of cash you're collecting, the amount of revenue that you're generating, the amount of calls you're taking per day based on your show rate, your close rate, how many deals do you need to close to reach your income goals, right? And on top of that, you don't want to implement massive changes, right? So this is something I see a lot. It's, okay, I need to take my close rate from 20% to 30%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my framework entirely. Wrong. What you want to do is, instead of changing it entirely, you add to it, right? Because switching it entirely will take you from potentially 20% to 10%. And then you're screwed, right? So add to it. Change little things as they come. Maybe the way you frame the call, maybe the way you handle this objection, maybe the way you create urgency in the consequence of inaction, maybe the way you paint that picture of where the prospect wants to be, maybe the way you get the pain out of the prospect. There's so many different little things you can tweak within your sales process, and it's important to test small changes rather than massive one, and measure if it's actually working. And the way we do that is by tracking the data. So testing one thing for 1 week, did it make a difference that week? Yes, no, okay, cool. And then we move on, so on and so forth. Then we want to focus on the inputs that we know are going to create a predictable output. For example, we know that we can quite comfortably say, if we're closing at 30%, that if we get 9 calls in our calendar per day that we're taking, we know we're going to close at least 2 of those a day, minimum, with a 30% close rate, right? So knowing that, that is a great predictable input that we have, right? And predictable inputs mean that we get predictable outputs. And that is exactly what we want, because we want something that we can rely on. We don't want uncertainty. We don't want not having the clarity. We want to know that this action is going to create this. And that is super important. For example, improving the show rate is going to do this. Improving the close rate is going to do this. How do we improve the close rate? Improve our framework. Quite simple. Improve the objection handling. Simple, right? So this is super important to understand, but I want to show you this. This whole video is to show you that we need to treat it mathematically. We're not shooting in the dark. We're not throwing mud at a wall hoping that it's sticking. We know how we need to improve, and it's just about ensuring that we are doing so every single day in the right way, like I've mentioned. And that's it for today, guys. So feel free to check the links out in the description below, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.